career at Tennessee. How did you end up at Arizona?
There was a connection with me and Coach Akina through high school. When he was at Stanford, he recruited me. So as soon as I jumped into the transfer portal, it was that same good connection when he contacted me.
So what do you think about Arizona, the West Coast, etc.?
It's been super fun. I love the people out here. Like, everybody's been super nice. The team was like super welcoming when I first got out here, so that was good.
So you mentioned you've had a relationship with Coach Akina. What's it been like kind of learning from him?
It's been good. It's a different style of coaching. Some days he's harder than others, but I love him. It's good coaching.
And then I believe you're now the coach-to-player guy with the helmet, the communication. How's that been for you?
It feels cool when I get the headset in my helmet. It's kind of like playing video games with the headset on. So that's been fun.
Takari, how are you feeling right now? It seems like you've been battling a lot of stuff. How difficult has that been to play through injury?
No, right now I'm good. Yeah, I'm good, 100%.
But just overall, I mean, has it been a rough year for you being able to have to play through that kind of stuff?
I say a little bit, but nothing serious. But overall, I'm good.
So, Coach Brennan on Saturday talked about how the defense is having to, it's going against the race of maturity. How's that been for you, Jack, having to play more of a role in the defense, and what have you seen from the young guys?
I just seen the young guys stepping up and then filling in them holes, like losing Gunner, Stooks, and Manu, and they just stepped up and came to play football.
I think you never want to lose a player. Like, definitely the great players that we have. But when the shot's there, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to train for it too.
Takari, I don't think you were targeted one single time. What was it like to feel like maybe you shut down, half the side?
I mean, it's a good thing overall, but in a moment it was boring, if you ask me, really. But I mean, I should take it as a good thing, not being targeted, not looked at. So, I mean, just keep dominating, keep going. In my eyes, it's like a good thing. So just keep working.
Sure. Whether you get the ball thrown to you or not, you still have to help out against the run.
Yeah.
This week especially, this is a very run-oriented team. What are you guys talking about in terms of, slowing down their run game?
Just keep being physical and just stop the run.
Physicality and winning the line of scrimmage is always big parts of a football game.
Yep.
A question for both. How much has Dalton really led the defense with all those guys out, and how has his role maybe changed in the defensive scheme?
I wouldn't say the roles really changed. I just feel like, Dalton, he's like high IQ player. Like, he knows all the positions on the defensive end. He's just very mature, and then he just been playing ball for a long time. So it's like he's just a vet out there, just being a vet, doing vet things.
I think kind of like what Bobo said, he's a vet now. Like, he's matured in the defense. Dalton knows every position to play, and he's been super great for me, him and Jen both. If there's ever a question that Coach Akina don't get answered, Genesis and Dalton get it answered for me.
Takari, do you see him playing like a similar role as Martell Irby last year?
Yeah, most definitely, yeah, because he played anywhere, linebacker, safety, he played corner too. Yeah. You ask me, he played anywhere.
Jack, you had 2 picks in your first start. You maybe could have had 2 in this last game if you had taken maybe a slightly different angle or timed your jump a little differently. How do you kind of view those 2 performances back to back?
After every game, it's good to watch film and evaluate what I did, but I'm on to the next week. I'm not even thinking about those right now.
Takari, was it weird maybe looking around at times and seeing there's so many of the guys that you started the season with on the field that are now just like in street clothes, and how weird that can be?
I mean, yeah, it's weird, but it's like, it's football. It's part of the game. It's just next guy up mentality. That's really what it is.
So I asked these guys this, Takario, with Jonah and T-Mac, and I don't know, we're going to talk to you next, but how do you look at the last stretch of games and maybe life after Arizona and possibly prepping for the draft?
Just be where my feet is. Just be now, worried about now, not worried about that down the road. Just I worry about that down the road. Just be where my feet is, worry about now, and worry about UCF.
Jack, are you gonna have family at the game? I know it's not like it's right next door to where you live, but it's a lot closer than where we are now.
Yeah, Orlando is super close to Melbourne, and all my mom's family's from Melbourne, so I'll have close to like 15 people down there.
Are you looking forward to that?
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a fun game.
Right. So Jack, was it the connection to Akina that made it so when you had committed here and signed here and then there was a coaching change that you didn't look to go back into the portal? Was it because Coach Akina was still here?
Yes, sir. Coach Akina and our connection was stronger than the connection I looked for anywhere else.
What have the vibes been like at practice this week? I know a 4-game losing streak, maybe you guys can check out and feel dejected, but you guys feel like you're staying together?
I mean, we always gonna stay together because that's all we really know. We just a brotherhood and just keep fighting, keep competing, and loving one another.
I think practice has been good. We had like good energy. We brought the juice every day.
Yeah.
Jack, you got some guys who are injured who maybe are some of the smartest, most experienced players on the team, like Gunnar Maldonado and Trayden Stoops. What have you learned from those guys? What have they been talking to you about as you've integrated yourself into the starting lineup?
They talked to me about pretty much everything, whether it's just seeing the quarterbacks drop, seeing if number 2 is on the ball or off, like anything I coming out of high school didn't see or coming from Tennessee didn't understand. Those older guys like Stooks and Gunnar have been great, just telling me exactly what needs to happen.
Do you expect them to do that? Are you surprised at all that they'd be so willing to help you out?
I'm not surprised at all. They're great guys, and they lead whether they're playing or not.
Takara, what do you think is going to lead to turning some of those pass breakups into interceptions?
Man, I just gotta get my hands. When I get my hands on the ball, I just gotta make a big time play instead of thinking about knocking it down. Just try to pick the ball off.
All right, that's our time. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate you.
So this is, I think, the first game in Florida for Arizona since 1992.
1992, yeah, what a game. We should have walked out with a W on that thing too now. You know what happened in that game, right?
8-7, right?
8-7, and we're kicking a field goal with 8 seconds left in the game, 40-yarder.
50-something yards.
Not quite, I don't know how far it was, very makeable for the young man. Would have been the first since the Flutie game. But then it started the whole run, you know, because we were, 1-1-1 at that time, and then that's when we beat Washington. When they were number one at the end of the season, we had a shot at beating 2 number 1 teams in the country that year. 1-1-1.
So what do you think are the keys for this game and making sure that the next time you guys are in Florida, you guys come out with a win?
Well, I think the keys never change no matter where you're playing. You know, whether you're here or Florida or up north. I mean, you know, I'm sure it's boring for you guys. You got to stop the run. You got to win the takeaway battle. You got to, when you have opportunities to make plays, you know, you got to make them. We had 3 great chances in the third down, in the second quarter, right? Second half, I'm sorry. 2 fumbles, balls on the ground. There's an interception to be had. You just got to make those plays, whether you're here or whether you're in Florida.
We were talking to Jack a little bit ago about how he came to be an Arizona Wildcat. He said that you had a connection with him, recruited him when he was in high school. Can you just tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, so when I was at Stanford, you know, it's a little bit different there because you have to have the 2 AP classes, and so I just saw you always have to look at the grades before, and he was a good student. Then I looked at his tape. I thought he was a good football player, so I went to go see him in Georgia. We recruited Georgia quite heavy over there. It was our number 2 feeding state, you know, next to California, and I had a chance to sit down. He was already going to go to Tennessee. He grew up a Tennessee fan, and so he was already kind of locked in there, but, you know, wished him luck like you always do, and so when he felt like maybe that wasn't the place, we were able to get connected again, and it all worked out for us.
With the portal, there's great value in keeping those relationships or starting those relationships, right? Because you never know if someone's going to become available again.
Correct. You know, that's how, you know, I had that again with Patrick Fields, who was a 2-time captain at the University of Oklahoma. When he finished, he got a hold of me when I was at Stanford and played his last year, so he was on those national championship teams that they had. And so I think that's just the right way to do things. The greatest advice, I think, one of the greatest things Dick Tomey taught me when I was a 26-year-old going to take the first time to go out and recruit. I had my oldest son. He was 3 months old, and I just asked him, Coach, how do you do this recruiting thing? And he just said, just recruit everybody that like you want them to recruit Kainoa, who was 3 months old. And I've held that my whole career. You just recruit them as if that's your son, and I think it all works out. Because you're not going to get everybody. These guys that create conflict at the end, I don't think that works. You wish them luck, and sometimes you get a call back in a couple of years. Just.
So Coach Brennan said Saturday that it's a race to maturity for the defense. Who have you seen step up with the injuries, and how would you assess the play of Jack?
You know, Jack is learning, like we said. We've, you know, the people that have been replaced were very high Q and a lot of experience, so you have to figure out exactly what we can do and what we can't, because it's still execution. So like all young players, he's learning, you know, if this game isn't Atwater instant player, and we understand that it is a result-based game, I mean, or profession. But it is also, from a coaching standpoint, it's still about the process, about developing players. And so that's where we're at with some of the young men that had to come in and fill the shoes. When you're on offense, like when I'm on offense and there's a young player, you can dictate what run you're going to run or what pass pattern. You can focus on that. For when you're on the other side of the ball, you know, it could start out 3-by-1. Shoot, all of a sudden they shift to unbalance. All of a sudden they motion back. So there's just a lot of things that you got to counteract when you're on the defensive side of the ball. So that's some of the things that you have to learn. Our cover down rules And in the secondary, where I've always been sensitive, those rules have to be simple, because if we are in the wrong spot or if we don't quite make the right play, that's 6 points. If the nose guard maybe steps in the wrong gap, that's got a chance to be a 6-yard gain. So, it's just really critical that me as a coach try to keep things simple back there so we can get aligned. And the trick is to take the thinking out of the game so you just see and react. Because, you got 2.2 seconds many times to make a decision back there. A long football play is 3 seconds. So we're developing, we're growing, him and Owen, and and then Genesis has to now play a new position too, rather than the middle safety spot. So everybody's kind of growing along at the same time.
This past game probably had the least amount of rotation as far as bringing in both the defensive line, and then I think the entire back seven played almost every snap. Is that just a product now of attrition, that you need to focus on just those main guys, and there's not enough time for reps for newer guys?
Yeah, bodies, I guess you could say, if that's what you're saying, yeah. And so a lot of times, as you're going through your script, and, he needs to see that one, or he needs to see that one. Maybe if that wasn't a veteran player, they had seen that last year and the year before. So you can sub, okay? Starters get 4, backups get 3. But many times the backups need play 5 and 6 on the script too, because that's brand new.
Justin?
Is it safe to say Dalton Johnson has kind of emerged as like a Martell Irby, where he can play linebacker in your defense?
Yeah, so, Martell was just a unique position because, he was with me at nickel, and I could tell very early on he just was a very instinctive football player, and he was just, the emotion is what we needed. Unfortunately, he's playing behind our best player in Stooks. But we had a time where it was 10 personnel that we could move him into the linebacker, and he played dime. And what we found, we stumbled on it, he was great in the box. And so now we might have had the 2 shortest linebackers in the history of college football out there. But, boy, they saw the game. They played fast, and they were rugged. Dalton, too, he has a real gift at being a box safety, a guy that is in the box quite a bit. So now, if you look, he's really our middle linebacker now, because we've gone to 6 DBs and in some of these games. So he's really become the guy. Him and Genesis, if there's anything unique, is who you have to give those unique rules to keep it balanced out for some of the other ones. So he's really done a great job in there for us, because he's another one that's playing a very different position.
2 questions. One is a follow-up to that. How do you see that defensive alignment matching up with UCF, which is a very obviously run-oriented?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of similarities. It's a different presentation, which meaning formations and some of those things, but there is some carryover within their run game. And, they're third leading rushing team in the country, which is very impressive. But there is some carryover. And then once again, you've heard me say it, we do have other directions we can go, but, we have to stay within the base. You can't reinvent the wheel every week. So we still feel like that we can stack reps from what we saw a week ago.
What do you think is going on with the pass rush lately? If you look at the pressure numbers, the sack numbers, they've been down the last 3 games compared to maybe the previous segment of games.
Yeah, well, some of that has been determined that some coverage situations has forced us to maybe shift gears a little bit within the coverage. So there's probably a little more 3-man pass rush, yet, we've really, as you've seen, getting people off the field through coverage now more than pressure. And there's just a few things that have dictated that move for us.
Justin, have you recruited the state of Florida, and what's the benefit of targeting that state?
Well, there's really good players there. I have. In fact, after we had the close game with Miami in 92, 8-7, and then we shut them out 29-0 in the Fiesta Bowl, we decided that, let's get in there because of the nature of the players. And then while I was at Stanford, that was my area. So, I recruited by position. I've always recruited by position every place I've been. It gives me a chance to get to know the defensive backs. But there's just really good players down there, so that's the benefits. Distance can be an issue. And there's some really good football teams down there, but there's a lot of speed, too. So much like Texas and Georgia, there's just a lot of good players that are in there that you can find a guy every now and then.
I'm not sure how much you're on social media or what you've been seeing regarding Arizona fans and just their disappointment in this. What's your message maybe to people who are doubting Brent Brennan and the staff right now?
Well, I guess I've been through this before. I don't know if people remember in 1987 when we first got here, took over for Larry Smith, who was 9-3, went to SC at that time. That was one of the marquee universities back there in the 70s, and we went 4-3. I think if you stayed patient, that thing turned around. By the time we were in 89 and 90, that was one of the best football teams. I went through the 1991 season. I don't know if anybody here in 1991? No? Okay, we were 4-7 in 1991. Okay, and that all worked out. 92 was when, because we were young, we were beaten up. A lot of the swarm now were freshmen, Brewski and all. That worked out for us. By 1994, we were a top 10 team. Shut out the University of Miami, and it wasn't that close. Dick said, take the air out of the ball. So the fourth quarter, it was already 29-0. Miami crossed the 50-yard line one time. So I think patience, and as you know, 98, we ended up third in the country. We're a top 10 team. So I've been through this before. So I think if we just stay patient, give this staff a chance. We've been dealt some tough cards, and you can't use that, because that's the nature of the game. But this has been a unique year, much like it was 91. That's where we were in 91. Pat Hill did a fantastic job with the offensive linemen. There were times, when we did third down, we just put trash cans out there because there weren't enough offensive linemen. So you, as a coach, you just be creative. And that's our job, is to not worry about what we got, is just find solutions. The team has stayed together, I think, which is credit to Coach Brennan. We have great practices every week. Nothing has changed from when, expectations were really high. And I would just say, be patient and give this staff a chance.
Has there been any concerns with the helmet, the player to coach the helmet communication? The Athletic is reporting the Big 12 has asked for that stuff to be turned back in this weekend because there's some sort of communication issue. Have you had any problems with that?
We really don't use it. On the I think that's more for the offense. On the defensive side, who do you give it to? Do you give it to the Mike linebacker? Okay, well, it's hard to get that to the field corner and all of that. We have used it in a couple different ways, but it really hasn't changed how we managed calling a game or anything of that nature.
Last question, Michael. 2 questions.
I don't know. Is that legal? What's the rules in the media interviews?
We're making up the rules. So Takario was not targeted one single time against West Virginia. He said it was kind of boring at times, but he kind of used it as a sign of respect. In retrospect, I'm sure you've seen that before with Chris McAllister and maybe some others. How do you view something like that?
Well, that's exactly what I told Dacario. It is a sign of respect, okay? Utah targeted him quite a bit, okay? And he won that fight. But that's as a cover corner. Chris Mack now, he was from a different planet, because I put Chris on the best player and took everybody the other way, because otherwise he would get bored. And you're right, I've had a lot of great ones at Texas. I don't know how many first-rounders, but we've had a few. And then that is something that you just got to keep going with them. And, I think it's great. He's a semifinalist for the Thorpe Award. I mean, that thing's not easy to do. I don't know how many semifinalists I've had, but if I had 7 finalists, I've had 15 semifinalists. So that's narrowing it down to the final 10. There's a lot of horses that were in this race when this season started, you know? So that's just, and he's worked really hard at developing his craft, the little things, the fundamentals, and being that. So that I got much respect for him to do that. He hasn't changed. He's continued working his habits, and he just can't relax because I'm sure these guys got some good receivers. They do have some really good receivers. So there's a chance he'll be targeted this week.
And the other question is, they're changing play callers this week, and I think they might be changing quarterbacks too. Fourth quarterback that they've used, I think. We don't know for sure what they're going to do, but how do you approach that?
Well, much like when I watched the other young man throw before, I've done this long enough that, you know, many times the backup quarterback just needs his chance. I think we might have lived that here at the University of Arizona. So don't get fooled by that, because last week as I watched the young man throw, and I just knew we were going to get a better arm than what we had with the other one. The other one had legs. You know, this one had, and as you saw him go through his rhythms, that touchdown pass on the fourth down play, the high straight one. I mean, that was Montana to Dwight Clark. That's exactly what that was. He left himself 1 yard, so when he jumped, he came in, so he's 9 yards deep. The high straight one always gets you. We had him triple covered. It's a great play on the kid. Give him credit. This one here, I thought by the end of the BYU game, really played well. He can throw it. His arms, I would think, is a little bit ahead of some of the ones that we saw, and he's still a good athlete running the football. So don't be fooled by a depth chart, because many times, well, ask the guy, what was his name? Wally Pep? Huh? His backup had a pretty good career. So to me, everybody's Wally Pep, man. You know, Lou Gehrig stepping in, and then we'll see where we go.
All right, that's our time.
Yeah, now take care of me. Don't beat me up because I say some of that's in jest, you know.